Hello and what is up, my friends? It's Thunderbob here, and tonight we're going to be taking a look at the Sinden light gun. And we're going to be looking at it specifically using the Batocera front end made for light guns. Now, first off, I have done a video review of the Sinden light gun previously. I really like this device. If you want to check out more of my thoughts on it, check out that video. I'll have a link in the description below. But my biggest complaint was the difficult setup process. You need to configure the Sinden software, you have to configure individual emulators, and then a lot of time the individual games have to be configured inside of that emulator. From scratch, it took me several hours just to get a handful of games up and running, and I've really been looking for something that makes the process easier. Someone dropped a comment recently on that review suggesting that I check out this Batocera, that there is a new update that allows you to use the Sinden light gun natively. And I was skeptical, but after playing around with it, it's really made this gun so much more enjoyable. First off, what is Batocera? It's a front end similar to something like CoinOps, Launchbox, Emulation Station, except it's made to run on Linux specifically. As far as I can tell, there's no native Windows version. So if you want to run this, you actually need to burn an image to a flash drive and boot your PC to Linux. And it's not as scary as it sounds. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can set this up and get it running. Now, first off, I did create a custom build with just a couple of games. And then poking around, I actually found a pretty good 128 gigabyte image on Arcade Punks, which is a place that kind of brings together different packs that people have made. And I'll put a link below where you can check that out as well. You'll come to the Arcade Punks website and you can download the image. I used BitTorrent. I think that's the quickest way to get it. And then you'll use a software called Balena Etcher, which I'll link below as well. Basically, you just point it to that image that you downloaded, and you will select the drive you want to burn it to. Make sure to select the right drive. If you burn this to the wrong drive, you may, kill your operating system. It does give you some warnings here, so it's pretty difficult to do that. After this is completed, you need to boot into your system BIOS. I was having some issues because of my NVMe drives. Windows boots too quickly. You can actually get to your BIOS by going to the power menu and holding shift while you hit the restart button. When the computer comes back up, you'll go to this screen. And from here you can select troubleshoot, advanced options, and then the firmware settings. And upon restart, it'll boot you into your BIOS. And each BIOS is going to be a little bit different, but mine specifically has all the boot items here at the main screen. You can just drag and drop the order. You want to make sure the USB drive is first. I made USB key and hard drive first, and then my normal boot drive after that. You can also go in mine onto the settings and go to the boot options and sort the order on this screen also. And then when you're done, you should be able to save and exit, and it'll restart your computer. Next up, you want to plug in that flash drive. I actually had an issue where it would not work with an SSD drive. I'm not sure if it wasn't getting enough power to boot off of it, but it did work with this flash drive, and I'll put a link down below for the specific drive that I'm using. And then when you restart, it should load into the Batocera environment. You will not be running Windows anymore. This will be running off of a Linux operating system, even if you're running this on your normal computer. It's pretty cool. And within a minute or so, it should boot up. And we're looking at the list of systems here. You can see here is all the supported systems in this build: Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Dreamcast, Neobi, PlayStation, MAME, Arcade. There's just a ton of games in here. I think there's 150 or so from what I counted. A couple of things I do want to mention. I'm just going to cycle through all of the games so you get an idea of what's in this pack. There is no PlayStation 2 support in Batocera with the light guns at this point. It sounds like it's coming in maybe the next build. There's a lot of good PlayStation 2 light gun games, so that's something I do want to check out once it's available. There are a lot of great games in here, things like Carnevil, Time Crisis, House of the Dead 2, Virtua Cop, just a ton of classics. Arcade is probably the largest grouping of them, but there's also some good console shooters as well. One thing I do love about this build is how plug and play it is. You can see the white border around the screen. Literally all you have to do to get this working with the light gun is plug in your Sinden light gun into a USB port. That white border appears and instantly it starts working. You don't need the software here. I've actually looked into the image and I can't find the Sinden software, so I'm not even sure how they're getting it working like this, but it takes a big barrier out of this. You don't need to set up that software, you don't have to configure it. It's very simple to get this up and running. 90% of these games worked out of the box without any additional configuration. There's a couple of minor things, like for example, Carnevil, you have to go in and hit F2 and calibrate the guns. Most of these games don't require that in-game calibration. That's like the major one I had to set up myself. Most of them, you plug in the gun, you select the game you want, and you start shooting. It's that simple. And we're just getting to the end of the list here. Just a lot of classics. And I wanted to just mention one or two issues I ran into. One thing out of the box, I was not getting any audio. It's as simple as going into the system settings by hitting the start button and going down to the audio devices and selecting the right device. You can make it play out of your speakers, or in my case, I had a wireless headset, and I can make it play out of the headset as well. There's also a ton of other options in here, like you can go into the Sinden gun settings, and here you can turn the recoil to different settings and also change the border to thin, medium, or large. It'll default to large. You can also calibrate the gun by holding the left button, the left directional pad button, and then this little target will appear in the center of your screen. You just aim at it, and it will recalibrate the center point of the gun. And that's really all you have to do to set up the aiming on this thing. And for the next couple of minutes, I'm just going to talk over some footage of a few different games I've enjoyed. This is Maze of the Kings, which is a little bit newer light gun game, maybe like early 2000s. I didn't play it back in the day, but I actually kind of dug a little bit of this I've played so far. One reason I want to show this off is there is no crosshair on the screen. I just want to show you how accurate the light gun can be in this case. And, you know, I don't need a crosshair to be able to aim with the Sinden light gun. It's that accurate, it's that speedy, and you can see that in a couple of places in the gameplay here. And this is kind of like a, I don't know, like an Indiana Jones-ish feeling game. But I don't have any crosshair here, and I can just aim. And occasionally, like when you shoot an enemy, they'll have items pop out, and like the gun is accurate enough that I can keep that item in the air, and each time you shoot it while it's in the air, you get additional points. And like repeatedly here, I can shoot all of the background objects. I can shoot the items that pop out of these enemies repeatedly. And I go quite a ways here without like missing. I think this is one of the best sections as far as showing off how accurate the gun can be. It's not perfect, like it's not, I would say, arcade perfect, but it is the closest I felt in the comfort of my own home. You know, I've played with the Wii light gun, I've played a little bit with an aim track before, and I feel like the accuracy here and the speed here is kind of on another level. And here's another from that era. This is a 2000s confidential mission. This is, it's a James Bond Mission Impossible style spy thriller. If it was written by like the House of the Dead studio. It's very cheesy, it's very tongue-in-cheek. But this is another good example. There's no crosshair on the screen, and you can see, you know, how easy I have it, you know, mowing down these enemies before they have a chance to fire back. This one's pretty fun. It's super cheesy, really ridiculous, but I had some fun with it. I didn't beat this one, but I got pretty far into it. Yeah, and this is included on that image as well. And of course, we can't forget Time Crisis. Time Crisis is my favorite light gun game series. This is the original game. Time Crisis 2 was actually always my favorite. That's the one I grew up on. I apologize that the video's cropped a little badly here. I apologize. I had to set the camera up for off-screen footage here because it's running Linux. I didn't have a way to actually record video directly, so this is all off-camera, and it was a little crooked here. My apologies. But I really love Time Crisis. I'm looking forward to the PlayStation 2 support coming, as there's some great Time Crisis games for the PlayStation 2. But this build does have Time Crisis 1 and also the PlayStation 1 Time Crisis game, which is kind of, I don't know, it's a little bit lower resolution and just, it's not quite as polished as the arcade games, but it's still pretty fun. And this is a game that, by default, it has crosshairs on. I could probably play this without them, just like Confidential Mission and Maze of Kings, but it works pretty well with them on. You can kind of see what I'm doing while I'm aiming. Like, I'm not really using the crosshairs while I'm playing for the most part, but you can see how fast it moves, like when I'm aiming across the screen, and it's pretty responsive. Like, you can aim from the top left to the bottom right, like in quick succession, and it's not like dragging across the screen to catch up with you. And here's another absolute classic, Carnevil. I remember playing this game growing up. I never beat it back in the day. I have beat this both when I first set up the Sinden gun and actually since I got it set up on Batocera here. I just absolutely love this light gun game. It's a horror-themed light gun game. Think something like Splatterhouse or Zombies Ate My Neighbors. It's pretty cheesy. Um, Not all that serious, but I really enjoy this one. It's a great light gun game, and works perfectly out of the box here, except you do need to configure and calibrate the guns, which you hit F2 when the game is starting up, and then it goes into a new menu, and then you can use the volume up and down button. I actually set them up to my arrow keys on my keyboard. You hit F2 to go to the calibrate gun, and you basically have to calibrate player 1 and player 2, and then the game will work after that. It will not work prior to that calibration process. And I'm pretty sure this is the first light gun game I ever played growing up, Duck Hunt. I had the Mario/Duck Hunt combination, and it works pretty well here. Again, it's got a crosshair on the screen. This one's a little bit funky at times. I've had, like, I swear I'm on top of it, and it doesn't register. I'm not sure if that's an issue with the gun or the game, but this is one of the few that I had a little bit of funkiness with, which is weird because it's such a crude and older game. But it works decently. And just to show you Sega Saturn, this is Virtua Cop 2. I've never actually played this game back in the day. It's kind of interesting. They have this mechanic where it zooms in on the enemy that's going to shoot at you next. It's kind of distracting, and I'm not sure if there's some way to disable it, but I think that was like the big draw of the game back then. But I don't know. It wasn't really doing it for me, but I need to put some more time into it. But it worked fine. So Sega Saturn works out of the box just fine. And here is a PlayStation game. This pack does have Point Blank 1, 2, and 3. 1 and 2 are the arcade versions, and 3 is the PlayStation 1 version. And this is a really fun, like, arcade game. If you have multiple guns, I'm sure this would be a great one to play. And you can see the accuracy is just fine here. I don't have a crosshair, and I'm getting most of these enemies. The ones I'm missing are more just because I'm aiming poorly rather than the actual accuracy of the weapon. But I had enough to clear my first attempt here. And this is just a great little collection of mini games. There's like dozens of different variations, from target practice to, like, there's one up here where it shows like a time on the screen and you've got to shoot the corresponding time that pops up. Just a fun collection of mini games. And if you have more than one gun, this is a great one. I can actually remember we rented this back in probably like 97, 98 at a sleepover, and we played this game all night, me and some friends. It's just a great light gun game. And like, this brings back such memories. Like, I can remember staying up until 2 o'clock in the morning playing this with a bunch of middle schoolers. It was great. And last but not least, House of the Dead 2. This is another great one. I've actually played this on multiple systems. I played this on the original Dreamcast with light gun. I own this on the Wii, and I've played this. I've got a gun cradle. Actually, I have 2 gun cradles, and me and my daughter sometimes will play the House of the Dead 1 and 2, and also House of the Dead Overkill combination. And it works reasonably well. The Sinden light gun, I would say, is more accurate. Like, the Wii version, it feels like you are dragging a cursor across the screen. It's like, it's kind of always trying to keep up with where you're aiming. Whereas the Sinden light gun, you aim where you want, to shoot. And that's the difference, I think. It's a lot more fun here, though the Wii game is completely playable as well. But yeah, that's the last game I'm going to show off tonight. And this is the Dreamcast version, and it runs perfectly. No complaints at all with this build. Okay, so I'm going to end things here. To sum things up, Batocera is a great front end that makes it easier to jump right into games without needing to set up the Sinden software, multiple emulators, and individual games. It's really the most complete plug-and-play experience I found for the Sinden light gun. While it doesn't support every system out there, it does appear to be getting regular updates, and I'm excited to check this out when PlayStation support comes next. Yeah, if you want probably the easiest way to use the Sinden light gun, I can't find a better way. Follow the links below. If you got any questions, drop me a comment below. And I want to thank you for watching. If you did enjoy this video, please do feel free to check out some of my other content. I've got several videos on the Sinden light gun and other retro games in general. I also cover new PC releases, the Steam Deck, and virtual reality. If you enjoy what I'm doing, please like, subscribe, and drop me a comment below. Thank you once again, and have a great night, everybody.